Hello students. Today we're going to be working on pages 45 and I'll tell you how far we're going to go through 52 of your iReady Common Core book, okay? So the first thing you want to do is go ahead and go to the back shelf and grab your copy, any copy, it doesn't matter, of the book, and go ahead and remove the pages. Once you've removed the pages, if you could please lower the book to the bottom shelf so other students know that that book has already had the pages removed. So you're going to go ahead and do that now. So I'm going to go ahead and do it myself. So I'm removing pages 45 through 52 of the iReady Common Core book. If you're having trouble, you can have help. If you pull them all kind of together, it's a little bit easier. As you can see, I'm doing mine right now. I'm sort of going to pull them all together. You want to kind of hold it steady. I'm having trouble with it myself, so I might pull from the bottom. No, I'm not. I'm going to pull like this. And just kind of pull gently. There we go. And once you get a little bit of a flow to it, it should come out pretty easily, okay? Don't worry about stapling this together right now. It's a little bit easier sometimes if you don't staple it right away. It's easier to get a handle on the pages. So I'm going to go ahead and walk you through the lesson, help you out a little bit so that you can go through this lesson without my direct help. You can just watch the video as needed. Feel free to pause the video if you're having any struggles with this so that you don't feel any kind of pressure to get it done quickly. Okay, so let's get started. We're in the same standard, which is citing evidence. And our standard asks us to cite evidence of both explicit information as well as inferences using several pieces of evidence. So several means a lot. So you're not just giving one piece of evidence or one quotation, which is what we've been doing. We're moving now to add more and more. So we're going to be expanding the size of the paragraphs we write from one paragraph into two paragraphs. And we're going to keep doing that until we get into the 5-paragraph essay. So let's get started with the lesson today. This is lesson 5 from our iReady. So go ahead and listen. I'm going to be reading here. You can go ahead and follow along in your pages. Have you ever looked at something that interested you, such as a hot air balloon or a telescope, and try to figure out how it works? An analysis is an examination of how the different parts of something work together. So let's underline and circle analysis. So we're going to take our pen here, and hopefully you kind of see what I'm doing there. I'm a little bit to the side here. I'm circling the word analysis. I'm going to go ahead and underline what that means. Okay? Analysis, really important word in the English language. An examination of how the different parts of something work together. When you read a story, you analyze how its parts, the characters, the setting, and the events work together to create meaning. Let's listen to that one more time. When you read a story, you analyze how its parts, its characters, its setting, and its events work together to create meaning. So remember that analysis is always the hunt or the search for meaning, okay? So that word meaning is very, very important. As readers, we are always searching for meaning. Let's continue. Some story details are explicit or directly or clearly stated. So explicit means it's stated exactly as it is. It's literal. Jessie was excited about going to the museum. So I'm going to circle explicit. I'm going to go ahead and underline what it means. If you could do that yourself, please. Feel free to pause as needed if I'm going too fast. Jessie was excited about going to the museum is an example of an explicit detail. You know that Jessie is excited and you know why he's excited. But story information can also be less direct. You might have to make an inference or an educated guess based on details in the story and your own knowledge to figure out what's going on. So of course we're going to go ahead and circle inference. We're going to underline what it means. An educated guess based on details in the story. Something we've been doing, so hopefully it's something that's starting to stick in your heads a little bit. After his dad had gone upstairs, Pete clenched his fists and stomped out of the room to go get a bucket and fill it with soapy water. His dad had just told him they were having company that evening and that Pete had to help out by doing some extra chores. Pete had finished all of his homework in study hall that day and had planned on spending the afternoon reading his new comic book, not mopping floors and dusting shelves. So let's go, before we get to the bottom part here, okay, which is the assignment, let's go ahead and look for ourselves for some inferences. So let's start off at the very beginning. After his dad had gone upstairs, Pete clenched his fist. So let's underline that. That's an action that's important. Okay, so what I'm doing right now is I'm close reading, kind of what we did last week, and stomped out of the room. And so right off the bat, there's an inference we can make there. Go ahead and take a moment here and go ahead and write what you can infer based on those two actions, okay? You can write it on the side. I'll go ahead and put a sentence stem for you. I can infer that, okay? I'll let you think through that before I give you what I think. So because Pete is clenching his fists and he's stomping his out of the room to get a bucket and fill it with soapy water, I can infer that Peter is upset or angry, mad that he has to clean up. So I'm going to put, I can infer that Pete is mad. You can make that sentence longer. You can add more details to it, but I'm just going to keep it simple for right now. Now that is an inference. That is something that is not clearly stated. At no time in this paragraph does somebody say, Pete is mad. They just say they're describing his actions. A good story will describe instead of say. So instead of saying Pete is mad, you can say things like Pete clenched his fists and stomped out of the room. As the reader, you're making inferences even without knowing it. So let's look at that bottom part here. Using details from the text and your own knowledge, fill in the blanks in the chart below. We're going to start off with evidence. Remember that evidence is proof. Okay, we can go ahead and write that down as well. Proof. Evidence is like in a trial or something. The lawyers have to have evidence to prove whatever their case is. That's what evidence is. Pete clenched his fists and, we already kind of were able to come up with what was going to be the inference. So we already kind of figured that out. So we already circled this or squared it. Pete clenched his fist and stomped out of the room. So we're going to go ahead and write that down. And feel free to pause at any moment if you need extra help or extra time. Pete had planned on spending the afternoon reading his new comic book. And if you're not sure where that's at, that's the very bottom here. I'm going to go ahead and box that as well. Okay. So I'm going to write it on this line here. On reading his new comic book, not, and that's again at the bottom here. You can see here, mopping floors and dusting shelves. Not mopping floors and dusting shelves. Okay? Feel free to pause if you need a moment just to finish writing down your evidence. So part of making an inference is your background knowledge. Background knowledge means what you already know. What is it that you've already understood? What is it you already know from your own life? And so let's read this part and see what it says. When people clench their fists and stomp out of the room, these are signs that they are mad. And since we kind of already did this as we were breaking down and doing a close reading of the passage here, we already have that written down. So Pete is angry about, so now we're in our inference, okay? So at no place here does it explicitly say that he's angry. We have to make an inference. Pete is angry about having to clean up instead of reading his comic book. So I'm going to write it like that. Is angry about having to clean up. And I write a little big, so feel free to use more space instead of reading his comic book. And I'm sure you guys in your lives, you wanted to do something and then your parents were like, no, you have to do this or you have to do that. And you're like, no, why do I have to do it? I don't want to do it. Okay? So Pete is angry about having to clean up instead of reading his comic books. So I'll kind of leave this up here for a second. Feel free to pause it so that you have all the time that you need, or rewind if there's something that you didn't understand. Okay? You will have a quiz this week on Friday, and I will be asking you the meaning of the word explicit and to differentiate between something that's explicit versus something that is an inference. So you would need to be able to tell me the difference. Okay. Again, pause if you need to, because I'm going to go ahead and turn the page. All right, great. So now I'm going to turn the page. I'm going to go into page 46. And we have another passage. And I'm going to go ahead, as you should always do, and read your instructions. It says, read this part of a short story about two criminals who kidnap a child and hold him for ransom. What does ransom mean? When you hold somebody for ransom. Think about that for a second. Yes. Ransom means when you have something that belongs to somebody else and you say to them, I won't give it to you unless you pay me money or give me gold. So ransom is basically you take something that belongs to somebody else and then you say, you have to give me something in replacement of that. It's a horrible thing to do to somebody. I know that in my husband's hometown where he's from, Mexico, they've done this to people before. They've kidnapped people and sent them pieces of somebody's ear. And then they said, if you don't pay me like $10,000 or pesos or whatever it happens to be, you're going to get more and more body parts of your loved one. And it's a horrible, horrible thing for somebody to hold somebody for ransom. So let's go ahead and read our passage. And as we read, let's go ahead and close read. Let's look for those details that are important. So here's what I'm going to go ahead and ask you to do. Look for at least 3 words that you think are powerful. Okay, so I'm going to write this down as a note, and you can copy this down as well. So I'm looking for 3 words. And when you're close reading, that's always a smart thing to do, is look for important words. And also look for the important actions. It's a good idea to try to figure out what something means or the deeper meaning by looking at what actions matter the most. And if we can do that, we can usually get a good sense of what the deeper meaning of the passage is. So as we're close reading, as we're doing 2 things. We're trying to make inferences, but we're also looking at the deeper meaning. What am I supposed to learn from this passage? Okay? All right, so let's get started. From The Ransom of Red Chief by O. Henry. We selected for our victim the only child of a prominent citizen named Ebenezer Dorset. Ooh, right away, I have a word, the word prominent. I'm going to go ahead and circle that word prominent. I don't know if you know what that word means, prominent. But go ahead and take a second, think about prominent. The President of the United States is a prominent person, okay? The principal of a school is prominent. So prominent means basically someone who stands out, or somebody that's important. Okay? So we selected for our victim the only child of a prominent citizen named Ebenezer Dorset. The kid was a boy of 10 with bas-relief freckles and hair the color of the cover of the magazine you buy at the newsstand when you want to catch a train. Bill and me figured that Ebenezer would melt down for a ransom of $2,000 to a cent. But wait till I tell you. The kid was in the street throwing rocks at a kitten on the opposite fence. Hey, little boy, says Bill, would you like to have a bag of candy and a nice ride? The boy catches Bill neatly in the eye with a piece of brick. That will cost the old man an extra $500, says Bill, climbing over the wheel. The boy put up a fight like a welterweight cinnamon bear, but at least we got him down in the bottom of the buggy and drove away. We took him up to the cave, and I hitched the horse on the cedar brake. After dark, I drove the buggy to the little village, 3 miles away, where we had hired it, and walked back to the mountain. So one thing I noticed right away is this little boy, he may be the child of a prominent person, but he's not maybe the best behaved kid. This is a little boy throwing rocks at kittens. Like, who does that? So prominent, I already circled. I'm going to circle the word ransom. Okay. And I'm trying to think, what other word is important? What other word should I circle that I think is important to the meaning? Let's see. The boy put up a fight. I'm going to put the word fight, because I think it's important that this little boy, whoever he is a fighter. He's somebody that's like, he threw a rock at this guy. This guy's bigger than him. He's a 10-year-old boy, younger than you guys are now, throwing rocks at people, throwing rocks at kitten. So it kind of gives us a sense that, whatever happens in the story, it's probably not going to be what the kidnappers were thinking. Not that easy, right? So important actions, I'm just going to underline. And I think an important action is, of course, the kidnapping. But I also think it's important that the kid was throwing rocks at a kitten, because I think that tells us something about his character. And then it says, hey, little boy, says Bill, would you like a bag of candy? That reminds me of that movie, the one with the clown, where he has the balloon, the red balloon. Yeah, that movie. It reminds me of that. Like, hey, little boy, come and get a balloon. I'm going to drag you into the gutters. But anyway, back to this. The boy catches Bill neatly in the eye with a brick. I like that action, too. I think that's important. Okay, so, and in the bottom here, we got him down to the bottom of the buggy and drove away. I think it's important to go ahead and notice that. Even though this little kid is a tough kid, they still were able to overpower him. And I think we're conflicted a little bit as the reader, because we don't want him to kidnap, but we're also thinking this is kind of like a bad little boy, right? Okay, so on your own at the bottom, I want you to work on this part. And it says, explore how to answer this prompt. Use details from the passage to predict whether Sam and Bill's plot will succeed. So you're predicting whether you think Sam and Bill are actually going to do this. Are they going to succeed? Are they going to win and get their money? A prediction is a type of inference. It is a reasonable guess that you need to support with evidence. So let's look through the evidence real quick. I'm not going to write it down for you. I'm going to go ahead and let you do that, but I'm going to talk you through it. So the evidence, it says, but wait till I tell you. The kid was in the street, and we already underlined this action, throwing rocks at the kitten. So feel free to pause right now if you want to go ahead and write that down. And then at the bottom, the boy catches Bill neatly, and we underlined this as well. So we were already ahead of ourselves, already figuring out what actions were important. So notice right away, if you close read, if you're underlining, circling important words, underlining actions that are important, you're already ahead of the game. You're already deeper into finding the meaning of the text. So, of course, the boy catches, and I'm right here, in case you got confused because I keep talking. The boy catches Bill neatly, and it's right here, neatly in the eye with a piece of brick. And in case you were confused on this one, the answer is right here, throwing rocks at a kitten. And then it says background knowledge. There's nothing to write there. It says throwing rocks at cats and people is mean. It suggests the boy is hard to deal with. And then the inference, I predict that Sam and Bill's plot will blah, blah, blah. So you need to, not blah, 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 but you need to make a prediction here based on what you've read. This boy throwing a rock at him. We have to infer what's going to happen. We're going to predict. A prediction is a special kind of inference. What's going to happen? I'm not going to tell you. I think we have enough for you to go ahead and do that yourself. All right, ladies, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, because you're not little kids anymore. We've done page 45 and 46. We're going to continue the next lesson with pages 47 and 48. Make sure that you hold on to these pages. You don't lose them. I only have so many copies. Feel free to come up to the desk and staple them so you have them each day. Tomorrow's lesson will be on the next pages, on 47 and 48. And again, we're close reading. We're answering questions. We're going to go through those pages tomorrow. Thank you for participating in this lesson. Feel free to go back if you need to finish anything else. Thank you. Bye-bye.